It is now 6:30 p.m. and I would like to call to order the June 14th, 2021 study session of the Board of Trustees of the Aldine Independent School District. Let the minutes reflect that all board members are present, with 6 of us in the boardroom and Mr. Bates online. Please be aware that we have viewers tonight. People are watching your every expression. We will begin the meeting tonight with Dr. Goffney.
Mr. President, Board of Trustees, we're going to begin with my agenda items on page 24. The first item is a discussion of
Somebody's computer is on.
Okay, good deal. It's a debrief graduation. As you all know, we had our graduations a couple of weeks ago prior to Memorial Day, and we had 9 graduations, 8, 10, and 7, and we overcame so many different experiences, including heat, rain, and even lightning delay. And so at this time, annually after graduation, there's an opportunity for the board to share commendations as well as recommendations. And then, of course, our executive leadership team will be taking notes.
Board, are there any comments you'd like to make about graduation? Mr. Mead.
I was very impressed that our kids got to graduate, and I was out early enough at the field to see how the seats were all set up, being beautiful white seats, all lined up perfectly. And each one of the seats had preparations with water under them and a little raincoat in case something should happen. I was just impressed that we got to have a graduation this year. And I think it turned, with a few little incidents we had, I think it turned out wonderful. It did make for long days having the spread between the 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock and then 7:30 at night. But I know we did it for the kids' purpose to be sure that people didn't get too hot. But I think our facilities were set up good, and I think it was good for the kid, and I'm very pleased that we had graduation.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Ms. Avalos?
Yes, I too was impressed with the setup and the amount of work that went into graduations. I think for the most part, it went very well. I think the crew at MOC just did a fantastic job, and they were constantly moving and clearing things, setting things up. You know, at the spur of the moment, we would change something and they go right in there to get it accomplished. And of course, you know, I've done graduation as the principal, so I know exactly how the principal feels approaching this. And I'm always, I guess, concerned about how the kids react and act. And for the most part, I think 98, 99% of the kids were really great, really great. Our kids are, you know, we had a few instances where I guess I'm just concerned a little bit, but would like to know how it was handled or what caused the issues with one group of kids not standing for the pledge and the national anthem, and another young man who pulled out the Mexican flag. Although I understand, you know, we don't want to do anything that's going to get national attention like it did in other parts of the country, but we don't want it repeated either. And so we've got to try to send a message.
Well taken. We can speak to what we think happened with the girl, and then of course, Dr. Rhodey, you can tell about the whole situation.
Yes. So we were actually, Dr. Charlotte Davis, as she was practicing and prior to that with the students, was notified that one of our, the class president who traditionally does the Pledge of Allegiance, stated that she was morally opposed to doing so, and as such, did not want to have that part under her. And so with that, we discussed it and understand that there's some freedom of expression that we understand is warranted or is part of what is happening right now. We did permit her to still sit on the stage because she had earned the right, being the class president. What we believed had happened is that there was influence from her that several other students took her lead and chose not to stand at that time. But we were not aware until it was going on. That is just what we had inferred based on the previous experience with that student at Eisenhower.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the situation with the students, historically at graduations, different ones, they do different things. And so I know that a lot of time, effort goes into explaining to students what consequences are possible if they do inappropriate behaviors. However, you know, the one that pulled out the flag, there was no warning, good kid. And
Right. I think that with each time we reflect on how we can do better to try to prevent things, like we can't prevent 100% of all of the things that could happen on that stage. And I, as you know, many of them use it as their opportunity to showboat possibly. And I know the principal sitting behind me had told his students many times that this is a serious event and had tried to put staff members where it was going to impede them from doing that. But unfortunately it didn't. And yes, as you know, it has happened in other districts, not only in Texas, but around the nation. And so it's something that I've spoken with Charlotte Davis, and we are going to put some things in place just to, you know, ensure that we have certain decorum and standards that happen and communicate that ahead of time.
And keep in mind too, it was a different ambiance. I mean, the stage was much longer, and
Yes.
because we were trying to abide by COVID protocols, we removed a lot of people from the
Right.
stage. And so typically, when we discussed this earlier, Dr. Davis talked about the fact that we would have somebody at every point. And that's been my experience when we've had it inside at MOC. But
Right.
because we were trying to initially abide by COVID protocols, we were limiting the number of
Yes.
adults who were on the stage. And hopefully we won't have another global pandemic and we'll be back in MOC,
Right.
where there's less room to do anything off task.
Yes.
Yes, because I noticed at that particular one, there was more space
Yes, ma'am.
between, which gave him an opportunity to
That's
do
true.
that.
Mhm.
But I just think that, you know, there needs to be a consequence and a message needs to go out, because what if he pulled out a Hitler flag, a Nazi flag? You know, what would we have done then? Would we have handled it any different? We went to the single notebook that is placed at the podium because we had a student in the district that did pull out their own speech. And that really cut back on them having to bring their own whatever they were going to speak on. And so we just, you know, that we just have to take care of it as they come up. And it sounds like that's what we're going to do.
Yes.
And we continue to use the single notebook.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how it originated,
They were
because of that
They were bringing
incident.
their own.
Yeah.
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 And Ms. Avalos, this is Todd Davis. So not only do we typically have more people on the stage, so the more they're engaged with an adult, the less likely they're going to demonstrate what, you know, their freedom of speech on the stage. But in addition to that, we always have assistant principals that are waiting off stage, just as they come off the ramp, that if there is a behavior that needs to be addressed right away, there's always an administrator there that typically will take them and get them under control. Or if we feel like they're not controllable at that point, then they'll be escorted off.
Yeah.
And that, in my experience with graduation, that's only happened one time. And that's over, I think, 13 years of graduations. So.
But I want to note that nobody tried to stop the student with the flag. He made it all the way back to his seat on the opposite side in the back, and nobody stopped him that I could see.
That is noted.
Yeah.
Yes.
that was it.
So it's just that kids will talk to each other, and if they feel they can pull something off, they're going to take a risk. And, you know, if it's nothing's going to happen to me, I'm still going to get my diploma.
Yeah.
And what what I learned to do is I asked that the kids come back for some D-Hall or some volunteer work at the school before they got their diploma. That may not be what we want to do. I'm just giving you an example of a consequence. You know, it wasn't a major one, but it was something that they can tell their friends, you know, unless you want to do this, you know, have to do this, be careful.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Bates has his hand raised, and then we'll address the other trustees at the dais. Mr. Bates?
Yes, thank you very much. I I appreciate protocol. I appreciate decorum, but I'm concerned about free speech. And we are hopefully raising our kids, I say kids, to be independent thinkers. And I don't want us to, as a district, to penalize somebody or suppress freedom of speech. I don't want to see that happen. And I guess we could say that there are situations that we don't want to have, but the freedom of speech is one of the hallmarks of a democratic society. And because it is one of the things that separates us as a nation from other countries, I'm not sure that I want to start down that road. Thank you.
Okay, would like to add a comment that if we're not going to have such expectations, then we don't need to start it with a script that says this is a formal and serious occasion. Is that what we want to do?
Dr. Garcia, Mrs. Sparza? No comment? I would just like to say that I kind of echo everything that everybody's saying. Spontaneity among teenagers has to be unique to Aldine, but there has to be some decorum. And with Mr. Bates's point of view, I understand freedom of speech. I enjoyed the entire time, and I wanted to thank the board for allowing me this year so that I had a graduation. Didn't have one during COVID. And it is just, for me, it is the hallmark of a whole year to watch the kids, to feel the energy, to listen to the songs. So I appreciate all of the efforts, even with the glitches. I really, really appreciated the graduation. So thank you, AISD, and thank you, Dr. Gaffney.
I also would like to say that I want to thank the team, the entire Aldine ISD, the board. I think the students they're the main focus. I think they had an awesome time, and they were true troopers, even during the rain, you know, and I appreciate the parents. It was a great group of kids. I could see the excitement on their faces, you know, nobody complaining and whining, you know, they did what they had to do. And I am so proud of them, as well as the parents. And like the little kinks, we're Aldine, we can work those out.
Thank you.
Okay, and so all the
Testing. So those concerns and the feedback are noted, and we certainly appreciate it. Next, Mr. President, Board of Trustees, we have an update on Finish Strong, Start Strong, and we're going to hear about summer school and a couple of other items. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over, I think, Ms. Reed, who's starting?
We're going to continue our, I guess it's now a tradition of reminding everyone of our core beliefs that we used throughout the entire transition through the pandemic. And you've heard us say that we're going to continue to provide choices and opportunities and also go as fast as we can, but as slow as we must. The core beliefs also really remind us to prioritize safety. And then one I'd like to point out that sometimes we don't always point out is that we will work collaboratively to define our new way forward. And as we end a year and begin a new year, I think what we have today is a reminder of the way we are working collaboratively to finish strong and start strong. Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, members of the board. The first update for our Finish Strong, Start Strong goes along with what we just debriefed, which was our graduation. I wanted to let you know about the date for our summer graduation ceremony, which will be Thursday, August 19th at 6:00 p.m. in the M.O. Campbell Arena. So we're currently looking at, it'll probably be a slightly larger group of graduating seniors that we will have because of some of the information that you are going to be hearing tonight as students who are regaining credits and other opportunities this summer. So I wanted you to be aware of that date, and more information will come closer to that, but please save that to your calendar. And next, I have the very esteemed pleasure of introducing several people that are going to share the exciting work that is happening right now on our campuses. And so I just want to give you a little bit of history. Starting in 2019, the summer of 2019, we reimagined what the experience in summer could look like and identified principal champions that were going to help reimagine what was going to happen at the summer. And so in summer of 2019, we had camps in almost all of our schools, and many of them were focused on enrichment and other ways to engage our students. Then last year, the summer of 2020, if you recall, it was during the pandemic, and we believed that we still needed to offer enrichment to our students, but as you know, we were not on campus at that time. So our opportunities that came to our students were all virtual. Mostly virtual. I'm actually going to introduce one person who last summer was key in having some pretty important touch points with our families and students. So this year, we knew that now more than ever, we needed to ensure that our summer experience was not just about students coming and getting remediation or coming up and making sure that they had credits, but that we were offering them a different kind of experience. And so we identified some summer principal champions, and this was back in February, I want to say. And at that time, asked them to take on this challenge, because this is in addition to the regular 9-to-5 job. And who I'm going to be introducing you to this evening are those that have stepped up. And one of the things that we know in Aldine, according to our leadership definition, is that we're connecting, inspiring, and making an impact, and that we are growing a bench of future leaders. And right now, I can say that our bench is getting stronger because of this summer learning experience, not just because of the principals and the program directors that I'm going to introduce you to, but because they're growing. Assistant principals, teachers, skills specialists who are truly leading summer school on the campuses, which previously they didn't have an opportunity to do. So you're not here to listen to me, you're here to listen to the exciting things that are happening. I am going to step away. I want to introduce Miss Rosalind Burns, who is the principal of Jones Primary. And she, last year and this year, she had the lucky experience to, she did such a great job last year that we wanted her back. I'm going to say it that way. But she's going to share with you some of the things that are going on with our primary schools this summer.
Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, and members of the board. I am Rosalind Burns, proud principal of Jones Primary, and this is my second year leading the summer experience. Each year, we've been given the task to dream big and to create opportunities and enrichment for our students. As we began planning this year, we knew our challenge would be great. We had to recover learning and close gaps. This was a great challenge in front of us. The SAS team led by Dr. Watson and the other SASs, put together a support team to help us meet this challenge. As we began to plan and put our minds together, we determined that we would have to have the Olympic theme and go for the goal. Michael Phelps, Olympic swimmer, said it best. Don't put a limit on anything. The more you dream, the further you get. So we dreamed big. At the primary level, we trained to trade our excuses for excellence. We employed 182 of the best staff to work at 5 campsites and to give 1,800 plus students, primary students, an amazing summer experience. We also have worked with 10 high school students from Blanton, Victory, Nimitz, Davis, and MacArthur to assist us in this project. I could not go without telling the teaching and learning department the credit that they have done to make this opportunity a great success. We have also worked with the SEL and the FACE department and all the auxiliaries who moved mountains to ensure that our vision was executed. We also like to acknowledge our business partners, Lakeshore and HEB, who donated books and breakfast for our students and staff. I want to assure you that our opportunities and instructions are aligned with our district priorities, as we have incorporated those programs that are proven success throughout our district. Waterford, Ready Rosie, Imagine Learning, CKLA, Benchmark, and Quaver SEL. Lastly, I want to share with you that each day our students have Opportunity Hour, where they get to choose an interest activity. The great part about Opportunity Hour is that it also gives our students, our teachers opportunity. They are incorporating art, dance, karaoke, fridge, coding, and makerspace, and much more. Please follow our progress on Twitter as we continue to go for the goal.
Thank you.
So the primary group met very closely with the elementary group, and I want to introduce the elementary team because it is a team right here. It is from Team 1, Mr. Scott DeBerkey, from Team 2, Ms. Shauna Showers, from Team 3, Ms. Therese Pollard, and who cannot forget the glue that holds it all together, Ms. Tracy Mansfield, our program director for elementary science. This is a team that has been imagining what elementary experience is going to look like.
Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, and board, and our visitors here tonight. We want to start with 3 words, and this is the 3 words that we started with primary and our SAS support as well, is Citius, Altius, and Fortius. And so our role was moving faster so that we could move kids higher and make them stronger. And so we really took going for the gold, which we are so excited about because our G stands for growth. Our O is opportunities, providing our kids different opportunities. L for leadership, because they are leaders of their own learning. We're not going to sit here and tell them exactly what to do. They're leading their learning. And then the last one is determination, because we, along with students and staff, are determined to move our kids this summer during our program. So thank you.
I'm going to address enrollment. Our enrollment consisted of our students that had an average of 0 to 69 year to date. As of the third 9 weeks, they also participated in an accelerated academy, just to help them work on closing their gap. All those students were invited. A letter was sent home to parents. Parents did return the letter. And at the start of our summer learning adventure, we had 4,700 kids that were signed up for it. We had registered them, got their transportation set up. As of Thursday, we had 3,500 that were participating in summer school. And today we had a number of students that were still registering and coming and setting up transportation for them to attend summer camp. Sorry.
And one of the great parts about this project is our enrichment opportunities. And Ms. Rosalind Byrne did a great job talking about our opportunity hour, which taps into the strength of the staff and students get to join what they're interested. We have yoga, we have scrapbooking, we have baseball, we have all kinds of things. So it's a really great way to end the day. The other one is for primary and elementary, we also have enrichment opportunities that was provided where kids all the way up until August can go online. We have 24 different activities. There's read alouds, there's different activities, because we wanted to make sure that we brought some of what we did last year during summer camp forward. So if kids weren't invited, they still have opportunity to continue learning throughout the entire summer.
All right, good evening. I'm going to talk about partnerships, but I want to give a shout out to Dr. Watson and the SAS and Dr. Rhodey and Dr. Goffney for giving us this opportunity. Thank you so much for allowing us to see what it looks like to grow other leaders as well. So we're excited to see the future, but obviously during this time, it's very challenging to get money donated to different people due to the COVID and businesses going down. But another huge shout out to Abel Garza. I call him and it seems like I call him and I ask for things. And he said, I'll try my best, Scott. And he came back and said, I don't think it's going to happen. And then about a week later, he sends me an email and actually called and said, we got $10,000 grant from East Aldine district. So we are using that for instructional materials and incentives for our children that are coming to summer camp. So we're excited about that. And thank you, Abel.
In addition, we worked with Martha in the FACE department to continue a collaboration with United Airlines. So all of our first and second grade scholars are going to be able to virtually tour the airport. They're also going to incorporate information about Tokyo so that it links directly to our theme this summer. We're super excited for all of our first and second graders to experience that.
So next is our professional development. So we enlisted the best of the best teachers. We sought out our highly effective teachers based on the 2019 criteria to be highly effective and effective. And I'm proud to say for not just primary, but also elementary, the teaching and learning department put every bit of the curriculum together. And so we provided it, it's across the board. So then we had to turn around and train the best of the best. So we spent the entire week right after school got out. And we had, as you can see for elementary, we had over 276 staff. That is a huge amount of staff. So we took 3 days to do that. 2 of those days, we were also working with Roz and we set up training for primary simultaneously at 2 different campuses. So we were literally going back and forth running to campus. And then we also did a special training with the SEL department for our SEL champions. So each one of our camps at primary and elementary has an SEL champion to make sure that we're pumping up the kids and we're making sure that staff has provided what they need as far as motivation and making sure we're taking care of ourselves as well as taking care of all of our students. So it's been a joy, pleasure teaching and learning. Thankful to them and my colleagues.
We also compiled several different tweets as well as photos, so you all can go back and look through that. I think that Dr. Rhodey is going to share it with you all. In addition, we would like to say thank you all for your continued support of summer learning recovery, and the elementary team does have a small gift for you all. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the elementary team. And I would like to.
I wish I could write my name there. Wait, this is.
I love it. I'd now like to introduce our middle school principal champion, and that is Mr. Marcus Jones. Oh, Lord. You are Mr. Jones, aren't you? That was close. Mr. Marcus Pruitt, the principal of Jones Middle School, who is going to share the exciting and engaging information about middle school.
All righty then. Thank you guys for having me here this morning. Excuse me, I'm saying this morning, this afternoon, or this evening. I'm here to talk about middle school, summer school, the summer of opportunity. And that name was chosen because of the opportunity we had to reach kids this summer. The opportunity to give them something different than the regular school year. The opportunity to regain some of what was lost or or refill some of the gaps that's missing. So that's what we came up with the Summer of Opportunity. While in the Summer of Opportunity, our students have 2 programs. We had a program of promotional summer school for those kids who need those gaps, but we also have the program of enrichment, which is fantastic. We still have kids signing up right now coming into the Summer of Opportunity, which is great. Currently, we have over 3,000 students within all the 13 campuses. We have over 390 staff members. Let me talk about the enrichment piece real fast. With the enrichment piece, we looked at STEM, knowing that's the growing field right now. If you check us out on Twitter, follow the Summer of Opportunity, you will see that we have a beats class or a music class where kids are coding music, making their own music, producing with Pharrell. If you guys don't know who Pharrell is, please look him up. That's one of our rappers, yes. But our kids are doing this. Our kids are participating in designing their own products, which is fantastic. On Friday, our kids will make their own shirts. They have their own design for their own shirts about summer school. What does that look like? And things of that nature. For art, our kids are using STEM with art. You guys, STEM is so huge, but to get those kids those opportunities that they wouldn't normally get in school, in a normal school day. That's what we were building on for this summer. And so with that, then we look at the promotional piece. For those kids who were lacking in a subject area, what we end up doing was taking the model of high school. We took the model of high school where you're only going to attend what you failed or what you weren't successful in. And from there, you're going to go to those enrichment classes so you can see what else school has to offer. And so we have to grow our kids. And in that same manner, we have to grow our people at the same time. I challenged all the principals to choose an assistant principal to run summer school. And I did that because a lot of time our administrative assistant principals, they never have a chance to work with the master schedule. This is an opportunity for them to work with the master schedule and learn so they can come to that next level to being a curriculum AP. We have to give everybody that opportunity. So that's where the Summer of Opportunity came from, not just for our kids, but also for our staff members. One thing that we are proud about is that the collaboration from all the departments, teaching and learning has been fantastic for us. I can truly say that. They helped us with the curriculum. They basically built the curriculum, but they built 2 curriculums, in some cases 3. They built curriculum for the promotional school, promotional with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Then they also built the curriculum for the enrichment piece, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And for those kids who needed virtual because of a medical situation, they built a curriculum for that also. So for teaching and learning, my hats go off to them because they actually did it. One group we couldn't have made it without it was student services. Brian Savant is a savant. He really is. We can call Brian and ask him for anything and it gets done. So when I call Brian, okay, Mr. Pruitt, this is what we're gonna do. We hold our meetings and Brian is right there in every meeting. So that support you get when doing this position, when doing this job, which I didn't know was there, didn't know it was this much work, but it is. But it's well worth it in the end. From student services to child nutrition to transportation, my program directors, again, we truly say thank you because they helped us push this program through. And right now the kids are thriving. Follow us on Twitter, Summer of Opportunity, so you can see what our kids are doing. Thank you.
All right, and last but not least is our 9th grade and high school team. So I'd like to introduce Mrs. Jane Ocañas, the principal of Eisenhower 9th grade, and Mr. Anthony Watkins, the principal of Davis High School, who are the summer champions for the secondary.
Well, good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, Board of Trustees, Executive Leadership, and audience. We're excited about the offerings that we have for our high school students. So we took the charge, and thank you so much for giving us that opportunity to be able to do this. It's been an exciting opportunity. And let me tell you, we first had to think about how we're gonna wake up high school students, get them out of bed. They've been playing video games all year and get them back in school, right? So we had to think really big about what that recruitment plan would be like to be able to organize it. And we started early. So we were able to partner with many organizations to be able to excite our students to get them committed to come. And you'll hear about our numbers because the recruitment efforts at each of the campuses has really paid off, and we're getting students enrolled every single day. And so we partner with WorkSource Solutions, the Houston Museum of Natural Science, Downtown Aquarium, Houston Food Bank, Lone Star. We have those partners helping us because our mission is to connect the bridge for our students' future, to have them have choices and opportunities. So we are building resilient, intellectual, educated scholars to be able to do that. And so we are working collectively, Mr. Watkins and I. Ninth grade does not work alone. Without high school, we graduate them at the high school. And so he's going to tell you all about our numbers, and I'll come back to our wow factor.
Good evening, everyone. So just taking a look at the numbers, the one thing that we noticed this year was if we went through the school year, we know we had many of our kids were virtual students. Not as many kids were face-to-face. Well, the one thing that happened this summer was the kids showed up. And you can see that in the numbers at all of our high schools. So I would say it kind of caught us off guard a little bit because we just didn't know. We had a lot of kids register for summer school because we know that we needed kids back in the building. So one of the big positives was we got kids in the building. The kids in high school, they did kind of reprioritize some things. They were working. They were taking on those adulthood type activities that they had to do. So as kids now are in the building, you can kind of see with the numbers, the total number, if you look at the bottom, is about 9,700 kids. That's the AM and the PM sessions. So we have a morning session, and then we added the numbers together. It's roughly around a little bit over 6,000 or so kids. When you want to go just individual number of kids that are actually enrolled in summer school, the exact number right to this morning was 6,459 that are at least registered for one class. But you take, like today, we had a number of kids all over the district come to summer school today. And so we are allowing kids in, especially if they need credit recovery. We know that it's a little bit of a challenge because we've had a week, but the goal is for the kids to recover credit, have an opportunity for initial credit, and have another opportunity for enrichment. But again, because of our numbers this year, we knew that we really had to focus on credit recovery, but we still provided that opportunity. We also have CTE courses in which kids can come and gain endorsements. So it's a collaboration of a lot of different groups. You heard from middle school, you heard from elementary, teaching and learning. We could not do it without teaching and learning. With Exandria leading that charge for us, writing curriculum. And like Mr. Pruitt said about Brian Savant, I have to give a shout out to Andrea. I talk to her every day about something. And so Andrea is great. She's in all of our meetings. It's just really been a blessing to be in this position. So I thank Mr. Lindeman for allowing us this opportunity, Dr. Goffney, Dr. Rohde, Dr. Davis. It's been a lot of work, but we have a great team with us, and I'm gonna let Ms. O'Connor talk more about that. But we appreciate this opportunity, appreciate our kids. And again, the one blessing about all this, our kids are back in the building. And so that social piece that we have been missing with our high school kids, I was really happy, to be honest, at Davis, at how many kids walked in. I know that we're ready to bring our kids back in the fall. And so this is a great opportunity this summer to get kids in the building so they can get acclimated to coming back into the building. And then we'll be ready to go when we start in August. And hopefully our kids are made up some ground and also gain some experiences through this summer activities.
So we spoke about the recruitment efforts. We got them there, right? They're coming to school. So now we have to retain them, right? We have to keep them there long enough so that they're able to earn their credits. And of course, our seniors graduate in August. And so with that, we have the wow factor. So our campuses were charged with having an enrichment program, a camp, a wow factor Friday, where students would be able to experience what they have not been able to experience, such as going on virtual field trips. Some campuses actually took that lead and applied for field trips, and we're actually going to send some students out to field trips physically. And so they were able to come to that, to be able to do that. They're awarding students with Kona Ice on Fridays. Today, Chick-fil-A, students received Chick-fil-A for lunch because they completed their Edgenuity courses. We have already 224 students week one who have completed their credits for Edgenuity. Week one. And it's only shy of 240 that had them completed 2 years ago at the end of summer. So we are really like, competition is on. We have a newsletter that we're sending out where we're highlighting also the site coordinators because they're doing a phenomenal job and getting them excited, getting the teachers excited about it. So we're highlighting them, we're getting the kids. It's about learning, but also having that fun experience while they're there because they've missed out and we want them, they're kids. Right. I just had my son graduate from Nimitz senior campus, and you got to think they're still kids, just in big bodies, and they want to have fun. They want to continue to learn. So we appreciate your audience today and appreciate everything and all the support that we have been receiving thus far. And we'll continue to make those calls, get that support because we want our students to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you heard it straight from those that are leading the work and have been not just our champions, but our cheerleaders for our students. And so I want to thank all of the principal champions who came out today and who have been working tirelessly to ensure that our students did not miss any type of experience this summer. And so thank you for the time. And that concludes my part of this.
Thank you, Katie.
Mr. Shanklin?
Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm impressed with all of it. Thank you so much for your hard work. You're really modeling leadership and the benefits are kids. Very impressed with the numbers, especially the high school. It's a wonderful thing that, it's being done for kids, and very impressed that the kids that are not there face to face also have some opportunity to participate. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
It's coming right back. I'm going to use this opportunity to take a word, I think, or a phrase that I'm going to call him, I want to call him Mr. Davis, Katie, the same way you call Marcus Mr. Jones. Mr. Watkins said, this is an opportunity for us to see our students back in the building. And as we prepare for many more students to return back in the building, we are still planning for a strong start this fall. You may have seen some of this before, but we are reviewing our Aldine ISD COVID protocols. For example, we visitors no longer have to go through the process to sign in and have a temperature taken. However, we're still reviewing how we will move forward with cleaning and how we will move forward with lunch. And are we removing the plexiglass? Are we bringing all of our guests back for our board meeting? So we're reviewing those protocols to ensure we have a strong start in the fall. We're also continuing to work with organizations to provide access to vaccinations. I know many people are at a place where they're like, everyone I know is vaccinated. There are still people who are interested in the vaccination and would like to get vaccinated. And so as we have partners who would like to do that, we are providing the opportunity for those who live in our community, who work in our schools, and our families. We're also working with other health-related services to provide information about vaccinations, about returning to school, uniforms, the things that people need to get back into the mode of returning to school. We are continuing to gather feedback from stakeholders. We don't want to make decisions in isolation or do it based on what someone else is doing. We want our community to weigh in. And then as a continuation, we are monitoring the local conditions and still reporting any COVID cases to our dashboard, whether that are at our schools as staff or students who are participating in summer school. So we will continue to do that so that we have a complete plan with protocols that anyone who comes back in the fall knows exactly what they should expect on August 16th. I'll also add that, we've closed the school year. We have to think about next school year. And as a reminder, I wanted to put these two calendars in front of you. The first day of school for the majority of our campuses is August 16th, and our teachers return on August 5th. And then, as you know, we have two campuses participating in ADSY or Envision 2010. And that calendar begins, that first day of school is July 9th. And then the first day for teachers to return is July 5th. Although those days seem a little ways away, it's important that we put them in front of us because they're the mark we're going towards.
And good evening, board members. As we approach the beginning of the school year, our learning recovery plan is essential. And as you can see from the summer experience presentations this evening, that our learning recovery plan is in full swing right now. And I just have to say a side note that these presentations, like what we just saw from our summer experience, really make me proud to be in Aldine. Someone that has experienced numerous summer schools over many, many years. What we have seen, the transformation for the experiences that our students have now in Aldine is absolutely remarkable. And it also indicates the level of collaboration throughout our district that is just, again, it makes me very proud to be in Aldine. But as you can see, as we move toward the beginning of the school year, our learning recovery plan is multifaceted. But what I'd like for you to think of is really just two things: tier 1 and targeted. Our primary focus for our learning recovery plan is to maintain a high quality tier 1 instruction every single day in every single classroom for every single student. That is not going to be a system where we are revising our scope and sequences to ensure that we're going back and covering content. That would be like doing one fell swoop over every single student in this district that they need certain skills. We are going to focus on what is next for them and make sure that our teachers have solid curriculum and resources in place, high quality instructional materials, and high quality professional development to help them make sure that we are maintaining a focus on that tier 1 instruction and providing highly engaging learning experiences. Now, outside of that, we do know that learning loss is a reality. It is real, and that we have to provide the right services for our students to recover the learning that has been lost. And that's why it's essential that we have a very targeted and strategic intervention system that is in place. What you may have heard in the past, what we've called our response to intervention planning, our RTI. We have had the opportunity to, over the course of this year, despite the pandemic, go back in, and we knew that we needed to transform these processes and make them very targeted and make sure that we've got protocols in place that our teachers and our administrators know exactly what to use for the assessment of need and the responsive actions that need to be in place. So we will be utilizing very targeted universal screeners at the beginning of the school year that will identify for every student what their learning needs are. As a response to those universal screeners, we do have very targeted intervention programming and intervention systems to support our students. Now, as you see on the screen right here, that is the typical RTI or response to intervention pyramid. And that typically shows that we've got about 25% of students that need targeted or intensive support. As we approach this next school year, that model, it will be flipped on its side. And we know that. So that's why it is very, very important that we provide the resources and the support for our buildings and our teachers to identify specifically, and then of course, be responsive. Now, in addition to universal screening, we will have progress monitoring that will take place on a frequent basis for our students to make sure that they are progressing and to make sure that we're assessing our own behaviors and that we are providing the right actions to identify their needs. And our goal, again, is to utilize multiple sources of data to monitor our students' progress. It is not one singular source that we will rely on to monitor progress and evaluate our own actions, but it will be a system that we will put in place. And again, so it's targeted and it's tier 1, and that's our plan as we move forward for learning recovery.
And as we close out, just wanted to give another reminder about our ESSER funding. As you all know, ESSER 3, we've talked about that and how we are currently planning to use those dollars for the next 3 years. And then recently we received notification regarding ESSER $2. And you'll see there that there's a small asterisk next to the 105 million, because that is our allocation. But at this time, we do not know exactly how much of that allocation, or if all of it, will flow directly to us. We are still awaiting the final guidance regarding the exact amount that the district will actually receive. With that being said, again, we've been gathering feedback from different stakeholder groups, and we have been organizing that feedback into themes so that we can make certain that we plan for effective use of these dollars and ensuring that we not only finish strong, but we start strong in the upcoming year.
Mr. President, Board of Trustees, this completes our report, but if you have any questions, we would love to entertain those.
Or do we have any questions about start strong, finish strong? It doesn't appear to be.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll hear from Katie Ruddy.
Good evening again, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, members of the board. I have two items that are under my section. I'm sorry, three. It is for, there are two early Head Start grants. The first one is CCP1, which is for 24 enrollment slots, and the other is CCP2, which is 16. We have a total of 40 early Head Start enrollment slots. And this is the MOU with our Avance. As you know, Aldine ISD is a delegate agency of this. This is for our students who are at the Hall Education Center who are participating in either the infant, the toddler, or other types of services with our early Head Start. And the last one is the approval of the continuation of the application for the early Head Start for this year. These are, you will see these every couple of years come up, and it is just a approval of the MOU. Any questions?
Board, Mr. Mead.
Katie, just one question. On curriculum, who provides the curriculum for our early start program? Do we do it ourselves?
Yes, sir. The early Head Start, as you know, we've got everywhere from newborns to 30-month-olds. And so there are a total of 19 staff members that are over at the early Head Start that are doing everything from not just instruction at that level, but a lot of our health services, our dental screenings, our wraparound services for the young mothers are offered through that. And as in collaboration, I'm sorry, with Avance, who also helps with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Doesn't appear to be.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Charlotte Davis for the next portion.
Thank you. Good evening, President Shanklin, members of the board, Dr. Goffney. My agenda begins on page 97 with 2 items on the consent agenda and 1 item for your information. On page 98 is approval of memorandum of understanding with Texas A&M University for the Advise Texas program. The Advise Texas program was implemented in Aldine in 2011 through a grant from the Gates Foundation. It provides a full-time college advisor at 6 of our schools, Aldine, Blanson, Davis, Eisenhower, MacArthur, and Nimitz High Schools. They work in collaboration with teachers, counselors, and administrators to increase college-going rates. In the schools, they provide admissions and financial aid advising to students and families, help them with admissions and financial aid applications. This is a 2-year agreement, and we would like to continue the program. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
Thank you. My next item is on page 109. And this is approval for our interlocal agreement with Harris County for our Community Youth Service Program. This, of course, is an annual agreement that provides 2 youth service social workers. Our KAIS workers provide resources and referrals to appropriate county services, as well as crisis counseling and consultation to at-risk students. They provide referrals and emergency placement to runaway and or homeless students and families, and make home visits and serve as a liaison between schools, juvenile probation, and CPS. We would like to maintain the 2 workers that we have in the district. Are there any questions?
No questions?
Okay, my next item is on page 126. It is the monthly discipline report for May. This is the last report for the school year. There are no comparisons for April and May due to, of course, school being closed because of the pandemic. There is one correction. You did receive a corrected copy. The yellow highlighted current year students served for May should be 62,582, not 67,987, and you received a corrected copy. Any questions?
Mr. Meek?
What was the number again?
62,582. If there are no questions, that concludes my agenda, President.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to HR, Dr. Javier.
Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, Board of Trustees. The Human Resources agenda starts on page 128. The first item is a consent agenda item where we're seeking approval of the MOU agreement between Minnesota State University, Mankato, and Aldine ISD regarding student training experience or their student teaching. And so was wondering if anyone had any questions on that.
No questions?
Okay, so now I'd like to turn it over. We have a short presentation on an update of our health benefits. I'm going to introduce Lamika Martin, our Director of Benefits, and she will be talking to you about that. And in support, we have Mr. Richard Kelly, who's our new HR Senior Benefits Manager here and supporting her. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Martin for you.
Thank you. Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, members of the board, all of our executive leadership, and our visitors who are attending face-to-face and virtually. So of course, everyone is excited about benefits and what's going on in benefits. So this year, 2020, of course, was very challenging, as we all know, due to many of the federal regulations as it pertains to employers having to cover the cost for our vaccinations as well as COVID testing. So that did hit our health and welfare portfolio pretty hard at about $3.5 million. We're very thankful to the ESSER funds, in which we were able to use those funds to offset the deficit and not have to pull from our general funds. This year, we did see a steady enrollment. So right now, we are maintaining the $23 million that we're actually offering for the plan year 2021-22 in regards to the $303 per employee per month that we're contributing toward the medical expenses. So what are our 2022 medical plan recommendations? As you are aware, the board was presented with the RFP that we conducted in the month of January of 2021. The actual medical plan that won, we will remain with Aetna. Still offering our Memorial Hermann ACO plan, our Kelsey ACO plan, and our open access plan. However, there will be an enhancement to our open access plan, which in the next slide, you'll understand that it's going to provide us with a new network, which is called the Texas Medical Network, which will probably have that name changed from open access plan to the Texas Medical Network. The plan design will remain the same. One of the features that it will offer is a 4% savings throughout the network. So our employees will see those savings in regards to claims and when they're visiting the doctors. It will also offer a broader network. Now, our employees will have to actually choose a PCP, but if they do not choose a PCP, much like the Kelsey Care Plan, one will be appointed to them, but they can change that at any time. They're not going to be, it's not set in stone, and that's for themselves and their dependents. But it creates that partnership with the PCPs and the employees to find those specialists with better rates for services for the employees as well. With choosing Aetna, we did see a 30.9% decrease in our administrative fees, so that will be a great savings to the district as well. One of the big things, again, our rates will remain the same for the 2022 benefits plan year. So we will not see an increase, much as that, again, is due to the ESSER funds. One of the stipulations was that with those dollars that were used for our COVID expenditures, that we would not increase our medical insurance rates for the 2022 plan year. Now, going forward, we will be looking at our plan designs, of course, our plans, because this is the 4th year in which the district has not had to increase their medical benefit plan rates. Few updates as it pertains to our health clubs. We will be remaining with Pure Fit, Fitness Connection, YMCA, ProFit, which was formerly Gold's Gym. They did a name change during the pandemic, so they went through bankruptcy. They geared back up and they renamed ProFit. We will be discontinuing effective January 1st, 2022, our relationship with LA Fitness. Unfortunately, we have not been receiving the services for our members that they are due. And so we've decided to discontinue that actual relationship with LA Fitness. Are there any questions tonight?
No questions.
Thank you.
So President Shanklin, to continue with the human resources agenda, the next item is a T-test appraisal calendar for the 2021-2022 school year. And then the next 4 are my standard monthly reports. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer at this time.
Board, any questions for Dr. Javier? Thank you, Javier.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Tamika Alfred Stevens.
Good evening again, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, and members of the board. My agenda begins on page 169, but we are going to first start with a follow-up from our last budget workshop. So if you'll allow me to start there, and then I will proceed with my remaining items on the agenda. Thank you, Yolanda. She is passing out a blue folder, which is simply a copy of the presentation that I'll be sharing with you in these moments. So as we talk about the proposed budget for this upcoming school year, the 2021-2022 school year, I always like to begin with acknowledging our strategic priorities, because as we all know, each decision that we make is anchored in making certain that each of these priorities are addressed so that our students have the best opportunities that they can. We've also talked about revenue and how important it is to accurately forecast revenue to the degree that we can, so that we can make certain that any recommendations that we bring forward, they are anchored in good, sound decision-making based on the information we know to be true at that time. So as you can see here in the proposed budget that we are going to be recommending based on the feedback that you have provided us over the multiple budget workshop sessions, that grand total, that $650 million there, or a little bit over $650 million, is made up of several funding sources. Our local dollars, about 34% of our projected budget, our state funding, just over 64%, and of course, those federal dollars, and not the ESSER dollars here, but the federal dollars that we receive in the forms of reimbursement from our SHARS program is primarily that $10 million there. So again, based on the feedback that you all have given us, we have the following recommendation for you. It takes into consideration the 2% payroll increase or compensation increase in addition to the $1,500 retention bonus that would be paid in the spring of next school year. It also takes into consideration the $58,000 first-year teacher starting pay, that adjustment that we will need to make to ensure that we are offering that competitive salary that you all have recommended to us. So if you look at each of those expenses as far as our proposed budget, again, that grand total equals the same amount as the projected revenue, because of course the ESSER support that you see there is what is supporting our overall budget. Also wanted to show you another high-level view of the budget and how we allocate it by larger buckets. And these 5 major buckets consist of course, payroll, which has consistently been over 80% of our budget each year. So that's everybody's salaries here in our district. And then we have contracted services, we have supplies and materials, and then we have other operating costs, as well as capital outlay. So those are the 5 big buckets. And then what you are accustomed to seeing each month is the budget by function. So each month, when we are in our meetings such as this, if we need to move funds from one function to another, there is a budget amendment that takes place. And as you know, this year, though we've had a budget amendment each month, we have not had to increase the overall budget or the overall bottom line. There are often times when we have to shift funds from one function to another based on requests by departments. Perhaps we've identified that the budget for a specific item was in a different function and it needs to be reclassified to the correct function. So with that being said, just wanted to show you by function what that proposed $650 million budget looks like. So you see everything from instruction, instructional resources and media, staff development, school leadership, again, just showing you the budget by function. And we also provide this in the proposed budget workbook that will be provided tomorrow should we move forward, when we will have our budget hearing. So you have a series of functions. Each function is accounted for. And of course, we have to report by function to PEAMS and to the TEA. So that's why we are showing you how the budget is allocated by function. And of course, accounting for the total $650 million that has been proposed for the upcoming year. Dr. Garcia, I'm making eye contact with you. I think you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shanklin. Viola Garcia with a question. Could you go back to the beginning of the function slides and differentiate and explain a little bit the difference between the instructional and the school leaderships?
So instruction is function 11, and that's where we have all of our classroom teachers are coded to a function 11. That's just one example. And then instructional resources and media, that's where our library expenses are coded. Then you ask for which one?
Difference between instructional leadership, I'm looking at.
Sure,
the
and
terms
school leadership.
And school leadership.
Instructional leadership would be like our program directors. They support instruction, and then school leadership would be like our principals and our assistant principals. Does that answer your question? Okay. So again, we have a series of functions. Each function is accounted for, and we have to report this information to PEAMS each year. And it's also a part of our audit that is conducted to ensure that we are allocating funds by function and not exceeding those functions that are budgeted for. So if you look at the bottom line here for the proposed budget for the 2021-2022 school year, and I'm on slide 10, as you can see, we are proposing that the projected revenue and expenses match, meaning that we are proposing a balanced general fund budget for this upcoming school year. Likewise, we talked a little bit about debt service in our last budget session, where our current projected payments for our bond payments is projected to be about 69,616,000, but the projected revenue is just slightly higher than that. So that $253,151 would be going into the debt services fund balance. And then likewise, for child nutrition services, you'll see here, we are projecting or we are recommending a balanced budget there as well. So the 52 million in revenue that we are projected to receive, we expect to expend that same amount. Are there any questions about any of the proposed budgets?
Mr. Mead?
The proposed budget, this includes what we talked about at our last meeting, when we give the teacher starting new salary. We went back with some sort of formula that we work out to make sure that the teachers that have been here so many years we make the differential between the starting salaries and what they should be making there. We've covered that.
Yes, sir. If
Did
you look,
we also cover the increase in the assistant principals salaries as well?
yes, sir. So if you look at slide 5, the compensation increases are noted, as well as the salary adjustments. That's where the assistant principals and others are captured. And then, of course, the first year teacher adjustments, that 58,000, it's there as well. So all of that is a part of the proposed budget that we are bringing forth this evening.
Did we also look at the police salaries, bringing our police up to what the other districts are at? Did we include that in here as well?
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Ms. Connie?
On the compensation increases, 2%, what, right now, that includes the 1,500 retention, is 23 million plus. Not all of that, of course, will have to be sustained. What is the number for 2% for future years?
$10.8 million that we would have to sustain for the 2%.
Any other questions, board? Doesn't appear to be.
I did have a question, one final question here. What is we had asked for the forecast. Is this new calculation change the forecast that you had made that extended 3 or 4 years down?
2025.
2025?
So in the last version of the workshop, the budget workshop, I provided the forecast for 3 years, for 4 years, actually. And is that what you're asking me about?
Yes, I'm asking if
And the
these numbers are aligned with that total that you shared then, or is it different?
So it's slightly different because remember, the recommendation or the proposals that were on the table at that time did not include a $58,000 pay increase for teachers. It included the $57,500. So we had to make that adjustment. And also the compensation increase was proposed on that number in that document that you're speaking of, Dr. Garcia, at a 2% pay increase and $1,000 retention bonus. So there was a slight adjustment that we had to make to account for the differences and based on the board's feedback.
Okay, so if I recall, the projection up through 2025, the shortfall would have been 59 million?
It would have been 59 million, so it's slightly more than that. So
Slightly meaning?
Just about 61 million, so a couple of $1 million. But if you also recalled, we showed how the fund balance was changing and increasing during that time.
Right.
In the years preceding that is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, and then the years after that would have been
yes, we'd have to make
big
some
impact.
that for that impact. Remember, those assumptions that were made was that the enrollment was continuing to decline at 1,500 students a year. And we had not made any staffing adjustments. So it was maintaining the same level of staffing that we have right now. So we know that going forward, we have to monitor our enrollment. That is a very vital piece to this puzzle. So this October, when we have our PEIM snapshot, that's going to give us some more current data as it relates to enrollment so that we can begin to forecast even create a better forecast, I should say, because we'll have more relevant numbers so that we can make those adjustments. And remember, the budget is still live and it's flexible and kind of fluid in those upcoming years, because we know we have to make adjustments along the way. We don't want to overstaff have our district overstaffed when we know that we don't have the enrollment to support those numbers.
I saw Mrs. Sparser raise her finger.
I'm understanding, I think correctly, that with the low enrollment of possibly 1,500 per year decline, there's going to be reduction in force.
No, ma'am. No, we're not saying a reduction in force. What we are saying is that if our enrollment continues to trend downward, we will have to use attrition. So to make certain that we are equalizing or right-sizing our staffing.
Okay.
We would not have to do a reduction in force if we are forecasting and making adjustments along the way.
You did mention that our fund balance would increase. How is that? What are the variables that you're considering or think might happen that would increase if our enrollment is not increasing? What, cutting down programs or what?
So the ESSER dollars, so we have the 235 million in ESSER dollars that we are using to offset shortfalls and to fill the revenue and expenditure gap that may exist. So because we are using those ESSER dollars, that means we would not be using our local dollars. So we can then retain or sustain our local dollars or even grow those local dollars, if I can say it that way, so that that fund balance will increase over the next 3 years.
With the ESSER.
Because we have the ESSER funds to leverage the funding gap that we may be experiencing. Also, please keep in mind, as more information becomes available about the ESSER 2 funds, that will be a part of the conversations going forward.
We don't know how much right now.
We know that our allocation is 105 million, but because of the hold harmless, I'm going to call it a settle up, the hold harmless settle up, we know that the hold harmless did help us. It allowed us to sustain our state revenue this year. So some of the talk or some of the guidance that's coming down the pipeline now is that the state may reduce the state funding like they did with ESSER 1 or CARES 1, reduce our state funding and replace it with ESSER dollars. That's, some of the language that's out there now. So we're still waiting to get that final allocation that we know to be true. But the initial allocations have come out, and that amount for us is $105 million.
So if I understand what you're saying, the state may leverage our ESSER $2.
That is correct.
Okay.
A portion of it.
A portion. Thank you. Board, any other questions? No.
And the final slide I'd like to show here is regarding the proposed tax rate. I mentioned that once before. We will not set the tax rate until we get our certified values. So at this time, our proposed tax rate is what you see here. That is the amount that we would levy to generate the revenue that I've shown to you on the previous slide. Are there any questions about the proposed maintenance and operations and interest and sinking tax rates? There is not an increase in the interest and sinking tax rate, and the maintenance and operations tax rate is the same from last year, but we anticipate that it's going to go down some once our certified values come in because of the required tax compression. And I think in our last discussion, and I'm looking at you, Mr. Shanklin, because even though the total tax rate went down, you were telling me that your bill didn't truly go down. Well, we had that discussion about, but the appraisal value of your home is more. So when that happens, you may not see the savings that you would have received from the prior year. So there's some give and take there.
So I can't leverage the ESSER dollars.
You can't.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Didn't appear to be any other questions.
Okay. If there are no additional questions, I'd like to proceed to my agenda, which begins on page 169. There are several items on the consent agenda this evening, and they begin with a series of, I'm sorry, I'm skipping past the ratification of the check registers, which are there. Then we have a series of bids that we are requesting your approval of. Are there any questions about any of the bids?
No questions.
If there are no questions, then we also have on consent this evening, the contracts and purchases over 50K. As you can see, several renewals that we are preparing for the upcoming year. And then we have one item here, item number 4, which is on page 250. And it is the approval of renewals for purchasing cooperatives and local and interlocals, I'm sorry. And we bring these to you annually because we always want to be able to capitalize on the best price points. And so being a part of these purchasing cooperatives allows us to do that. So we are requesting your approval of that item. Also, we have, again, a few easements. And easements have been popular the last few months, but we know that we want to make certain that we are supporting those efforts to reduce flooding in our community. And so we are supporting that work that the county is doing there. Also, on page 269, that we are requesting approval of the authorized investment institutions and representatives. I myself, Dr. John McGee, Alexia Rogers, and Jolie Jackson are each authorized investment officers for the district. And so it is our responsibility to make certain that we are conducting investments on the district's behalf and that we receive the required trainings to be able to do so. Again, we are required to make certain that we share this information with you annually and that we would complete our training, such a fun training, each year to make certain that we are responsible with our investment practices. And then the final.
Quick question.
Yes,
As an
absolutely.
investment officer, are you also a fiduciary?
Just an officer.
Just an officer. Thank you.
On page 272, we are requesting the approval of a resolution for commitment of the fund balance for the E-rate appeal. We've had this E-rate appeal on our books nearly 10 years now. Some time ago, we requested E-rate reimbursement for some technology expenses, and about $2.3 million of those expenses were, I'm going to use the word rejected. And so we countered the rejection. And since then, it's been tied up in, can I say litigation, Mr. Wald?
Not litigation, just the administrative appeal process.
Okay, the administrative appeal process. And so because it's been tied up in the administrative appeal process, we have to make certain we set aside those funds each year in the event that that administrative appeal process moves forward. We don't anticipate that we would have to pay that 2.3 million. We're going to counter it each time because we believe that, well, we're confident that the expenses were allowable, but needless to say, no action or no final agreement. I'm looking at Mr. Wald because I
No
use my
final-
own legalese
That's
sometimes,
right.
so she
That's
has to
okay.
remind me that that's not the right word, Tamika.
No, it's the final disposition has not been rendered. And we're not sure when it will be. It's gone through, I think this is the 3rd administration.
Yes, and so we set those funds aside and we've done so, like I said, for the past, I think this is going to be year 9 at this point. Are there any questions about any of the consent agenda items?
Didn't appear to be any questions, Dr. Stevens.
Yes, sir. I'd like to move forward to the information items. My standard reports are there. Are there any questions about any of the information items?
It doesn't appear to be.
If there are no questions, President Shanklin, that concludes my presentation this evening.
Thank you. We'll move on to Adrian Bustillos, Transformation Office.
Good evening, Board President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, and board members. My name is Adrian Bustillos, the Chief Transformation Officer. My board items begin on page 297. And I want to talk to you tonight about the additional day school year planning. As you heard at the Strong Start, Strong Finish, school starts July 9th. That's less than 30 days away at Vines Primary and Ermel Elementary. So tonight we're going to talk about the accomplishments that we worked through this year. And I have 2 great dynamic leaders here to share about the work at Vines and also at Irmo Elementary to give you a little more detail about Envision 2010 for these campuses. As we've come through the school year, we've talked about major accomplishments, working to select a calendar, working with a committee, newsletters that have gone out to the families, working to get the messaging out, ensuring that we have the right teams in place to move the work forward. So we've done a lot of work from July 15th, 2021 to launch this new program July 5th July 15th of 2020 to launch it in July of 2021. So all this work has been noted. You can see all the great progress we've done for Envision for this program. So as we move forward for the Envision 2010, we want to ensure that this work is going to come to life. Thank you all. You all approved the calendar. I just wanted to highlight two comments that stuck out as we did this work. One from a Vine staff member encouraging that they know the summer slide is real and always having to start the year to go back and reteach and get the kids back on pace, that this work is just going to lend itself to start strong and finish strong with the year and keep growing students and not have to take a step back. Also, an Irmo staff member talked about the benefits for our students, and this is why we're doing the work, to work with our students and give back time to the teachers to make their instruction tier 1. You heard Dr. Davis talk about tier 1 instruction, so we can move forward and keep growing students. So the work on here in this calendar, you can see the days that are in yellow, again, are going to be our Wednesdays. This is going to be our Envision Day. That's going to start the work for these campuses at Vines and Irmo. So I just wanted to clearly show the yellow days are going to be the Envision days as we start the work. Again, July 5th is when teachers report. First day of school is July 9th. And you can see that the school year is going to end a little bit later at these two campuses, June 9th of the following year as well. But as you can see, we've been working to show what the Envision Day, what the regular school day looks like, and then the difference from the Wednesday. What does that day look like? We have some built-in time for learning for the students. We have some acceleration time for math, for English to do that work. We have the SEL work for extended time. And then we also have the teacher professional development days. But you've heard from me all year long. But tonight, you're going to hear from the two leaders that are leading this work at the campus. So I'm going to bring up here Mr. Eric Torres, principal of Irmo Elementary School, to talk about what that Envision looks like, what he looks forward to in this program, and the benefits for his community.
Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, members of the board, and everybody else here. We have been also championing our work so far since last July, like Mr. Bustillos just said. And we just wanted to kind of share our enthusiasm for what we're about to embark on. It's been a lot of work, but at the same time, we've had a lot of help, especially from the finance department, Dr. McGee, Dr. Watson, and everybody else involved. But just know that we're very excited here at Irmo. We haven't lost any teachers, even though we thought they would want their summer, as we usually do. But we know that it's very exciting to be able to bring our kids back after not having them all year for the most part, right? We've lost maybe 33% of the kids were online for us. And so we're excited to have them back. We've had several conversations with parents, community members, obviously the students as well. And we surveyed them and asked them how they felt about coming back early. Obviously, some of them were not too excited. They would rather be on vacation in Mexico or wherever it is that we go, because I used to go there as well. And but we know that we have a lot of exciting things coming up. We're going to implement art and a STEM lab at Irmo Elementary, which is something new and exciting that gives our students another experience, because I always promote experiences at our campus instead of just the normal wear and tear of a normal school year. We want our kids to leave with an excited day to come home and tell their parents, look what I did in STEM, look what I did in art. We have a lot of kids that need to express themselves in certain ways that they're not able to in reading and or in math. And so we're going to provide those avenues for those kids to do that. We're also excited about giving the teachers more time to plan. You know, we used to be teachers. We got home, we were very tired. We still had to work on lesson plans. We still had to tend to our own families. But now we're going to give teachers 1.5 hours of additional planning time throughout the week so that they can work on those things. So we can do our PD and actually plan. You know what I mean? Elementary is a little difficult to plan compared to middle school and high school. And then so what else? The kids, we're going to involve the whole child. We're going to develop the whole child. We're implementing a lot more SEL than other campuses are. And we're also providing a required 30-minute recess every single day. We believe that kids need to be more social after being at home for such a long time. We believe and we know that the kids are going to enjoy school now. Even though they come back in July, it's going to be okay. They're going to be taken care of. We're going to teach them. We're going to catch them up from the learning loss that they've had because of the time that we're going to be with them. And so, given this opportunity as a new principal at Irmo, I am very excited, and I'm very, very happy to be given this opportunity. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. And those of you who know, he was actually a student at Irmo as well. So he's
Wow.
coming back, and now he's going to come back in the summer as well with his teachers. So it's just a full circle for him. So thank you. So when we're talking about the face of the community, Mr. Torres does that, and he is very respected in that community. So thank you for sharing that. And then next, I want to introduce Linda Reed here. She is the principal at Vines Primary School, also to share her excitement about the work.
Good evening, Dr. Goffney, President Shanklin. I'm going to say this. I did 20 years in the military and presented in front of generals and majors, but I am so nervous right now, and I don't even have to worry about a uniform. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you how grateful I am to have a chance to be a part of this grant. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for coming to my campus that fateful day to say, hey, Ms. Reed, I want Vines to do this. And I was like, okay. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the opportunities that are coming to primary. One of the things that mostly that I'm really excited about is the fact that we will be participating in art, which will help our friends develop fine motor skills. We also get to have drama, which is going to help with oral language. When I presented this to my staff, I made everybody turn on their camera, and I wanted to see the faces. And when I told them about the calendar, they were like, but then I went into the whole, okay, guys, let's think about this wonderful opportunity that the district has granted us and the things that we'll be able to do. Think about where our kids are coming from and just the addition of staff that we're going to have and their faces changed. So that was wonderful. But I'm just excited with the opportunities like Mr. Torres says about adding recess. Studies show that kids need to get out and play. So we definitely need that. And y'all know we need that with our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. They are balls of energy. And so we're excited about that. And I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be able to have this at my campus. A lot of times primary is left out. So we're excited. How was that, Adrian? Okay.
Thank you for that. So as you can see, these two leaders are excited about the work, the passions behind it. The school principal is going to drive this mission home and really work with our students and our parents and our community. So we're excited. July 9th, it is a Friday. That'll be our first day at school. So we look forward to the days to welcome our students back for the next school year. So with that, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Any questions to Mr. Basios? No questions.
Great.
Thank you.
And that concludes my board items tonight.
Thank you, Adrian. We're moving now to Ms. Shalia Reed, our communications officer.
President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, members of the board, and everyone else. They said, my agenda is on page 301 through 312. Sorry, 307 through 312. It's just an overview of the recognitions and then the monthly media update. There are no questions. I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Abel Garza, Assistant Superintendent of Governmental Relations and Constituent Services. As you know, we were gathered here probably in December, and I believe his script said this will be a simple and uneventful legislative session. Then we came back, I think in February or March, and gave you an update and still said they'll focus on ERCOT and it'll just be a breeze. Dr. Goffney warned him that this could be his job. And on May 31st, when the gavel was banged for the 87th legislative session, the history books will tell you it was not easy. It was not focused on ERCOT only. It was in fact a pretty eventful session. And so the rest of his presentation, although he has about 7 or 8 slides, there's no way possible the time he's going to use tonight can give you any bit of an overview of all the things that we heard, saw, read, and overviewed through the nighttime hours. But I think what he shares today will give you just a little bit of an indication of what did happen. Abel?
So Abel, this will not be sine die.
No, well, thank you. And for the record, that is what they said that I said. So I'll leave it at that. President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, members of the board, my agenda begins on page 313 of the board book. Tonight, we talked about, we wanted to review some of the highlights from the 87th legislature. Is it working? I forgot how to work the clicker. It's on.
What page did he say?
It's 313. My agenda begins on page 313.
Yeah, you skipped one. You skipped.
She told me this. Thank you. It begins on page 213, but I'm going to ask you to move to page 316. And you'll recall our legislative priorities. We begin with the school finance and school finance. Did I go too far? There it is. We'll begin with school finance, digital learning, school choice, mental health, and school safety. And our last priority was accountability. With school finance, our goal this session was to maintain HB3 funding. And even though there was a new public education committee chair, it was apparent that any items dealing with changes to the funding formula would have to go through the original author, Representative Huberty. By mid-session, we knew that HB3 would be fully funded as new revenue estimates came out and the state's budget looked better than forecasted. As a result, HB3 was funded, basic allotment was not raised. Every district and charter received at least $208 per student, $1,200 for every student below grade level. Now, HB 25, which was the HB3 cleanup bill, spends part of the ESSER funds on new grants funded through the Commissioner's Office. Districts will receive the bulk of the ESSER funds in upcoming months. And however, HB 25 also offered other changes. Sex ed moves from opting out to opting in. Reading Academy's deadlines moved back to June of 2023. SHAC meetings are subject to open meetings laws now. There's also an extensive list of other items that are covered under HB 25, as you can see in these slides. Our next priority is digital learning. I wish I could say there were victories in digital learning. However, there really was not. Now, one of the bills that did come out was HB 4633, which creates a commission on virtual education. However, a bill that would have allowed digital learning, House Bill 1468, was a casualty of the House Democrats walking out in protest of Senate Bill 7, the elections bill. As a result, there is talk of a special session to deal with virtual learning. So there may be a possibility of having 3 special sessions this summer. Now, priority number 3 is school choice. Listed here are some of the bills that concern this area. House Bill 773 adds students that completed CTE programs of study to the list of CCMR indicators. House Bill 1147 counts the Texas National Guard into the AF ratings and CCMR readiness outcome bonus. SB 204 allows district to bus kids from other districts as long as they do it in an equitable manner and the receiving district is a C or above. The passage of this bill was surprising because you had a lot of rural districts that were fighting this bill. Smaller districts were losing students to bigger districts. However, the bill did pass. And that's part of what was going on this session. It really, you saw most of the time these rural districts kind of get what they want because they correlate pretty well together. But this time there was adamant opposition to that bill in particular, and it still got passed. It's amazing. It was an amazing session. Priority number 5 is accountability. I think I'm leaving y'all behind. Oh, I missed number 4. Priority number 4 is mental health and school safety. This is for our board members. We have a new training requirements for school board members on school safety. The SBOE will create the trainings, so stay tuned for that. SB 168 requires adequate notice for school safety drills for districts and charters. SB 741 will regulate how a district can regulate the carrying of handguns by school marshals. There's also a new law related to excused absences related to students missing school due to obtaining driver's license or permits. So again, a lot of little stuff that occurred that, you know.
Can you reconcile for me 741 and constitutional carry, if at all?
So it's not about them being able to carry, they can carry. It's about what you as a school board will be allowed to tell them where and how to carry it. So it can be in the certain type of rounds, certain type of case, certain type of, you know, a holder, that type of, that's what it's about. It's not about whether you can or can't do it. It's about how you can allow them to do it. If that makes sense.
Could we even talk about caliber? I mean, when I looked at that, I'm still having questions on how to reconcile constitutional carry with 741.
Yeah, and I honestly, the wording on the ammunition, if you will, was kind of interesting. I don't know enough about ammunition and how it works. I have to get with the chief on that, but it's very specific. And again, it's about how we allow them to carry it.
Thank you.
Okay. Accountability. SB 1365 made several accountability changes. Some of the highlights include moving the bar for exiting state interventions from a D to a C. DNF campuses in 21-22 would be not rated. D campuses need to complete a local improvement plan. The count of unacceptable years is paused for 2 years at a D. And of all the things that SB 1365 was meant to fix, what it does not fix is a case against HISD.
Really?
The bill still keeps the case pending under current law. Finally, one of the most impactful forms of legislation was House Bill 3975, or the critical theory bill. House Bill 3975 originated in the House, but the Senate substantially changed it. It was killed on a procedural vote, and we talked about this bill. However, the Lieutenant Governor brought the bill back, stripped it of all the amendments, and got the House bill passed through the legislature. Those changes included stripping out more than 24 requirements that students study the writings or stories of multiple women and people of color. The bill states a teacher may not be compelled to discuss current events or widely debated, currently controversial issues of public policy or social affairs, and that the teachers who choose to should explore the topics from diverse and contending perspectives. So, yeah, that
makes sense.
That is what we got out of our legislature. Finally, as you know, we are getting briefed. We got a full good briefing this past week. You all will be getting briefed on Saturday at TASB. So we look forward to seeing you there. Any questions?
Any questions of Abel? Strange times we live in.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Abel.
Mr. Shanklin, if nothing else, that concludes all of our reports.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Don Ayers.
Good evening, President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, and members of the board. My agenda begins on page 324. I have linked in the board form access to the 2021 STAR results for the district and all campuses. And I believe Yolanda has also shared with you a manila folder with hard copies of these results. To date, as of Thursday afternoon, we've received approximately 90% of our results, and we are expecting the remaining data to arrive in the district in the next couple of weeks.
I just wanted to remind everyone that the last time that our students participated in STAR assessments was in the spring of 2019. As we recall last year in March, when schools kids were sent home to finish the learning remotely for the year, the commissioner made the decision to cancel STAR assessments for 2020. So in the results, you will see 2018, 2019, and then this year, 2021. In addition to looking at the multiple measures and continuing to anchor the work in our strategic priorities, we also are being guided by the communications that we continue to receive from TEA about reviewing our STAR scores. As I previously shared with you, one of the first pieces of correspondence we received from TEA was that they recognize the challenges that our students have experienced this year and our teachers have experienced this year due to the pandemic. And for that reason, TEA has paused accountability for 2021, which means that the school district nor campuses will receive an AF rating based on these results for 2021. TEA has also indicated that we should exercise caution when reviewing STAR results in isolation. So we continue to keep that top of mind. And they've also indicated to us that we should continue to review the results to determine where we can target resources to schools and students that have the greatest need and support.
I think it's important, board members, to take us back to the conversations that I shared with you earlier in terms of our intervention plan, our response to intervention plan, that the caution that TEA provided us, I think is very helpful, but we also need to I want to make sure it's very clear that the information that we do get from our STAR scores will help us in part inform where our students are, but it is multiple measures that we will be using moving forward to make sure that we've got a clear picture of where our students are, and that if there are any inequities and performance gaps, that multiple measures help us make clear decisions. And as we were speaking about this morning, Dr. Billy Rael gave a very wise analogy to how we approach our STAR scores this year, that they are more of a flashlight than a hammer for us. And flashlight in that they really will shine a light on the pathway we need to take, again, in part for our students' learning loss and learning needs and how we respond to that, rather than using them as a punitive measure for our teachers and our leaders. As you heard, the state even cautioned us in knowing that there are multiple variables that play into these results this year, and we have to be mindful of that. And so we need to be very careful as to not approach it as a hammer, but as a flashlight. And I thought that was a very wise analogy that Dr. Billy Rael shared with us today.
Oh, if I may say, in a room full of academics, what you say sounds really good. If I am standing in the produce line at Kroger and we start talking, it's got to be one of the most disappointing things that I've ever seen to try to explain. I understand the caution, I understand the technicalities of it, but shining a flashlight on the path, it's hard to explain to a constituent.
I think, Mr. Shanklin, for this year specifically, it won't be as difficult because it's top of mind across the nation because everybody experienced the pandemic. And so when you look at what we have here, the learning loss has been discussed ad nauseum, and we try not to have that as the lead going forward, encouraging teachers to continue to show up and provide experiences of engagement both at home and at school while keeping students safe. We know that in Black, Brown, and areas of poverty, we've experienced the most challenges as it relates to not only the COVID pandemic, but also there's so many variables. And so I think what we do know for sure is we had one of the highest percentages of participation of any district. And so when you even try to compare, there are certain districts that may have had 50%, or maybe they're learning at school students are the only ones who participated, or some students didn't participate. And we don't know how many teachers were out quarantined. We don't know how many students were out quarantined. We don't know how many had accommodations. We don't know how many were experiencing death. And so there were so many different things. What we do know is that while disappointing, in my opinion, it's better to see where we are now so that we'll know next year how to move forward. Because if we hadn't had this flashlight, then next year we wouldn't have known just the significance of the learning loss that everybody's talking about.
And if I could just add to that, Mr. Shanklin, I think you're absolutely right. It is a very difficult thing to explain. We're conditioned at this time of year to look at results that might be a bit disappointing and want to look back and start to think about what were the root causes of that and who could possibly be to blame, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so I think it's very important, though, because of the multiple variables, and as we become more aware of the things that played into these results, as Dr. Goffney said, the conversation, the explanation of the results, we become a little bit more clear in how we can look at them as a path moving forward rather than a tool to look back and punish ourselves for what in many ways we were not in control of. We lost our students for a period of 2.5 months last school year. And, in effect, once the pandemic hit, the level of learning and the degree of learning, we have to be real about that. And as we moved into the school year, we still were gaining traction in how we could truly engage our students. Our focus was engaging our students in learning in a way that we have never done in the past. And as a result of that, we did not have the opportunities to accelerate their learning like we have done in the past. We have to use these results as a way to inform us, and now how do we come out of this past 1.5 years and move forward in a positive light to try and recover what has been lost and accelerate our students to the point where they don't have an asterisk next to them any longer, but we get them on track and moving forward. And I think if we use these results wisely, we will be able to do that.
Board, you have comments, questions? Okay, Mr. Mead and then Dr. Garcia.
I do have a question. Looking at these scores that I'm seeing and how far off they are, all the schools did virtual, whether it was our A schools or whether it's our other elementary schools. So why do I see one of our A schools, Worsham, on one of these pages where all the schools are off 46, 56, but Worsham's only off 7. They were doing virtual just like the other, and so Goodman was doing the same thing. So why is Goodman and Worsham doing better than the other schools when they were all doing virtual? What's the difference between what the teachers were doing at Worsham and Goodman that weren't doing at all the elementary schools?
Well, those are 2 ACE campuses. So the amount of supports and structures that were provided to those campuses were done so that we would expect those results. Remember, we, as ACE campuses, we are designing supports that can show as a demonstration to what works in Aldine and what we can replicate moving forward. So we need to do a deep dive into that, Mr. Mead, and see exactly what was happening that provided something different at those 2 campuses that we needed to do moving forward. And remember, we put our best principals there, we put our most talented teachers there, and additional supports because those are struggling campuses, and we would expect that we would see results that we are seeing. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Mead.
Well, it does to a degree, but I just when I see, does that mean our other teachers aren't good enough? I mean, I know we put the best we could do. Does that mean the majority of our teachers aren't up to teaching?
No, Mr. Mead, that does not mean that. It means that we need to take a look at what exactly are the needs of those campuses. So again, using those 2 campuses as demonstration schools so that we can replicate the practices that were there. Now, it also tells us exactly what do we need to do to support our teachers. It's not that they're not capable. We need to make sure that we're growing their capabilities in every opportunity that we can. We need to make sure that we're giving them the right resources high-quality materials, high-quality professional learning, high-quality coaching, high-quality opportunities to plan on a daily basis. So across the board, we're building these systems to raise the capabilities of everyone in the district. And so, again, these results start to surface some of those gaps potentially in capability. And that's when we as a teaching and learning department, we as a district need to make sure we're focusing our supports in a way that's providing the equity necessary across all campuses.
Dr. Garcia.
Mr. Mead, if I can as well, to echo, kind of piggyback off of what Dr. Davis said, you also, when you're looking at these results, please make sure that you pay close attention to participation rates. So you'll see that Goodman and Worsham also had higher participation rates. And I do also want to point out that, yes, even though students were virtual, they were given various opportunities throughout the year to return back to the campus. So when you're looking at these results, you may have some campuses that had half of their kids at home for the entire year, where other campuses had more students on campus for learning. So there are several different variables to Dr. Goffney's point that we have to be cognizant of when we're reviewing these results.
Thank you, Don, for responding. I just want clarification here on a couple of things. So you've noted on these documents that they were updated today. When was the first receipt of scores?
The first receipt of scores. So let me provide context. So we had over 95% of our students who participated in the assessments online. And because our students participated in online assessments, the state created special files this year that we were to receive. They did tell us in the receipt of those files that data would be coming every couple of hours. We could not be guaranteed what we would be receiving, but we did receive our first set of data, I want to say May 17th. We received English 1 and English 2, a partial file. I think we had 20% the first time we received it. 4 hours later, we had 25%. And so data has continued to trickle in. I will tell you that we still have 800 sets of data that we know are in our district that haven't been attributed to students. And so as we continue to get data, we continually update the reports. These were updated today. We should have some additional data that will be released actually this evening, hopefully by midnight, and then we'll receive some the next week. So I will tell you that the data has been trickling in, and as we've received it, we continue to update reports.
So I'm imagining we have high level reports, and the sort of disaggregation that Dr. Davis alluded to is in the works. I'm assuming that we will receive disaggregated data in such a way that the analyses that you are conducting regarding the factors that you just described will be made available.
Yes, ma'am. As soon as we receive the official files, is what TEA calls them, we will add that information to the report.
And disaggregate and extend.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So that was one of the questions. And the other is, they're absolutely alarming, the results, not only because of the loss and the summaries on the two-pager, the colored two-pager really indicate that, but the concerning thing is not only that there was that gap and that larger gap, but that the starting place for the students, I mean, it would be different if the starting place for these students had been at the 70th percentile, 80th percentile or so, but the starting place for the students in the comparisons here, those scores were already low. We had discussed that when we met with the consultant and developed the goals for the district, and were concerned even at proposing that the goals be what they were, because the goals are in fact, relative to what would think would be, the 50th percentile or so. They're in many cases even below that, the goals that were set for these standards. So So that sort of complicates the opportunity loss that the students experienced. And there is no, at least from my part, Dr. Davis, and I don't know that the board is interested in blame. They absolutely would be the last thing that we're concerned about. The primary concern that I'm focused on are these students. How are we going to get these students, and they're learning up to the level of expectation that they're at. If they're third grade students, they should be attaining to the highest degree all of the skills and knowledge that a third grader should receive. And so I really look forward to what the projected plans are, what the disaggregation shows, who are the students who experience the greatest gaps, why did they experience the greatest gaps, and what the plan is to move forward, because absolutely this, the results are very disheartening, as Mr. Shanklin has shared. And if your own children, our own children were experienced this or had this opportunity gap, we certainly would be knocking at the superintendent's door, to ask, what are you going to do? What is the plan? What are you going to do about this? We've shared about the summer learning experiences. And we've talked, pretty much during the year and when this began last March, about the extended availability of expanding social emotional learning opportunities, wraparound services, additional supports. But, the evidence really needs to be demonstrated in documentation like this. And I am fully aware that you said this is one element. So it'd be interesting to see all of the other assessments that are done and the triangulation of all of this information, because it is that's why we are all here. We're all
Yes.
here for those students, and to see that they are going to move forward in such a way that they're going to be productive.
And Dr.
Absolutely,
Garcia,
they
and
leave.
I
So-
think the one thing too, just like many, the commissioner said it, I've said it, we were not, there was not that there should ever be pressure, but literally scores don't count. Students knew it. So take for an example, a third grade student. Our third grade student was in second grade last year. So they'd never been introduced to any type of setting for taking a test. And, they missed 9 weeks of their second grade year, and many of them didn't even come their third grade year. Let's look at fourth grade. Fourth grade has never taken an assessment because they didn't take an assessment their third grade year. And then they all took it online. We've sent a clear message to our principals and to our teachers who may even be watching that we really were concerned about engaging students, and we weren't concerned about a STAR test. And like everyone thought, oh my gosh, this is not something we should be worried about. And so there are many factors, I think, that have gone into it. Again, I don't lead with, I'm on record saying we don't want COVID to become the new excuse for low expectations. But what I guess the light is knowing where we are. And like you said, it's unacceptable. I have talked to my colleagues in all Texas Urban Council, all of them. And every district that looks like ours had double-digit losses. I talked with the commissioner, and he said the state data, which again, they're playing down, would be shared so that we could have some context. But even that, you can't really compare. The closest comparison to us, we had a discussion about, would be San Antonio, because San Antonio had about the same number of students who were learning at home. They had the same positivity rate, the same level of concerns that others have had. And so it's just it's a crazy time, but I feel confident that our teachers have worked hard, our principals have worked hard. While it's not the results that we were, I don't even know if it was a hope. It was just, we didn't know what it was going to be.
We didn't, and when it comes to the STAR scores, it's about holding ourselves accountable.
Mhm.
And, I did use the word blame, Dr. Garcia. It is about, as a former principal, school leader, I always held myself accountable for the actions. And I think every single one of us do that. And so in that line of thinking, we look at how do we then find what was the cause for these scores as they came the way they came. And unfortunately, I did use the word blame, and not with any intention that that's what the board was doing. But what I was trying to say is that our job right now is to use these scores and very simply say, what are the scores telling us and what are we going to do about them? And that is exactly why we need to use them as a flashlight to shine a light on the path moving forward. And yes, we will triangulate. We use multiple sources of data to make sure that we are making the right decisions, and we will disaggregate it. Dr. Garcia, to student group, to student level, to campus, to classroom, to make sure that we are serving the needs of our students appropriately and equitably. And absolutely, that will be shared with you and discussions in more depth as we move forward in what that response plan is.
Of course, one of the other disconcerting elements of this is that I don't know if the students will see their scores. Will the parents see their scores? That was the other disconcerting thing when there was a discussion and the commissioner was attempting to decide back in November or December whether he would move forward with assessment this year. And the mere fact that conclusion was, yes, we will move forward with assessment, understanding and knowing that the trauma that the children and that the parents were already experiencing was insurmountable. It was already huge. And then to layer this on top of that is, from my perspective, unconscionable.
Right.
It was done. And now to have a child, imagine the child receiving these scores. As you said, never tested before, never done this before. The devastation, the ego disinflation of a child because we had an experience that we had other measures. We had lots of other things that teachers were doing to assess, to help, to assist, to do diagnostic work. This is not diagnostic work.
Right.
This is a day, they go in, they take a test and we get results. This does not promote, a great knowledge of what the child knows. And so that we went ahead and pushed ahead to do this and now have the children and the families, live with the results in their home is really unconscionable.
And what I must say, Dr. Garcia, the only people in our district who are going to be using those results would be ELT and the board. The SAS they're not to have conversations with principals. Principals aren't using it to have conversations with teachers at all. The other flashlight moment is that while our proficiency rates are not where they want to be, to think about what progress is going to look like in the future. And so had we not assessed this year, then we wouldn't have been able to get points for progress because we would have had to progress from 2019. So the only flashlight moment for knowing where we are is knowing, confronting the brutal facts of this is significant and that our students have experienced a global pandemic. And the good thing about it, while where we start is an Aldine concern, where we are right now is a concern across the country and across the nation and across the state of Texas. And so no one is lauding their results and everyone is talking about how much learning loss.
But Dr. Goffney, we do have other assessments that
Oh,
we do
absolutely.
internally in the district that we could have used and relied on to know, even for the future, if students were improving beyond what they did this year.
Yes, we could have. Yeah, Dr. Garcia, yes, you're absolutely right. But the reality is that the test was given. And so that's why it's so very important that as we communicate with our teachers, the flashlight and not the hammer, because that is not the way they should be approaching their students. And we need to be able to use this data as something that we can use to determine what we do next for our students in combination with other sources. So yes, it happened, but we're going to try to do the best that we can with it as we move forward to help serve our students. I'm looking at it as it is another piece of information that we can make some valuable decisions around while not punishing students for what they've lost. but turning and helping them as we move them forward.
Ms. Avalos.
Yeah, just wanted to get a clarification, well, something that you just said about they're not going to be shared with principals?
The principals have access to them and they've already seen them. I was meeting with a principal this morning and the first thing she said was, I am so disappointed. I expected X, Y, and Z. I said, no, ma'am. We had a conversation, but we're not going to hang our heads. We're not going to take on the responsibility of a global pandemic and use that as a determination on our success as a district.
But they will be part of.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Intervention.
Absolutely.
And my last comment is I have confidence that y'all will do a deep dive. And I just ask that as you do it and you come to some stopping point, if you could share it with us at that point, because getting something on the day we're going to talk about it isn't good for me. I like to process it and look at it for a few days ahead of our meeting.
I think it was posted, but it was a link. And so it was posted on, was it Thursday last week?
Yeah, the link was shared in the board book on Thursday afternoon. But I did it so that because I knew the numbers were continuing to change and I wanted you to have the most up-to-date data. As numbers increased or decreased or things moved around, I was updating the reports, but the reports were posted via that link on Thursday afternoon in board book.
Dr. Booker?
Yes, I know we talked about the summer academies. Are we having EOCs this summer as well?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a part of the high school that they have EOC prep?
Correct.
Okay, and also as all the board members have shared and Ms. Avalos, I don't ask for a lot of reports from the executive team, but this right here is a concern for all of us, not just principals, not just the leadership team, not just Dr. Goffney, but us as board members. We all need to be a part of this. And as soon as you get the data, if you all can share it as soon as you can, as on a regular basis, because it is life after COVID. It is education after COVID. And we can say it was COVID now, but 2 or 3 years, we can't keep saying that. So we're gonna have to figure out together how to fill these voids. So I'm asking, as well as the other board members, if we can just stay in the loop, because we all need to be involved in this process. Thank you.
Mr. Bates, were you chiming in on this at all? Thank you. I think the last thing that I want to say on this topic is, again, in this room with these people here, we understand where you're coming from. But what really touched my heart was what Dr. Garcia said. A student and a snapshot, that's their reality right now. And that's what we're going to be approached with. We're all at large here. So the entire district are our constituents. So we don't have a slice of the pie any place. It's the whole thing. And it's hard to explain. It's just hard to, so we're trusting you guys. And like everybody is saying, feed us as you go along so that we can help communicate your message to the rest of to the entire school district. Anything else, board? Don, is anything else?
If there are no other questions, that concludes my agenda.
Now to the well-dressed chief. Paul, Chief?
President Shanklin, Dr. Goffney, and members of the Board of Education. My agenda item begins on page 327, and it's there for your review, and be happy to entertain any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for our chief? If no questions for chief, then we'll go from the police to the lawyer. Mr.
Save
Walt.
the best to last.
Save the best for last.
All right, my agenda is on page 332. It's my routine agenda items. If there are no questions, we'll be ready for executive session.
Any questions for Mr. Walt?
Mr. President, I also would like to note the time is 8:43, and I would like to thank the board and my colleagues and all of our visitors for making a record.
A record?
Yes, a record time.
Oh, really?
Yes, record time. We
We're
made
not-
it through a full agenda. We covered a lot of information this evening, and we did it in 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Well, thank you for that, but you're not off the hook yet.
Well, we made it through up to executive session.
Okay, thank you. We will adjourn into executive session under section 551071, consultation with Mr. Walt, our attorney. Section 551074, personnel matters. Section 551072, real estate. Section 551076, security personnel or devices. And section 551082, student disciplinary matters. Always hard for me to say, if any, under the Open Meetings Act. It is now 8:44. We're adjourning into executive session.